Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Microsoft 365. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. My name is Noor Basha, Marketing Director at WinWire Technologies, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. So today's topic for the session is Microsoft 365, so formerly known as Secure Productive Enterprise. And today you will learn how Microsoft 365 empowers your team, safeguards business, and simplifies IT management. We will also get some tidbits and also insights on some of the latest announcement that has happened a couple of days back at the Microsoft Ignite conference on Microsoft 365. So before we start, let me highlight few housekeeping items. So during the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end. This session is being recorded and we'll share you the slides as well as the recording in the next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, let me take this opportunity to introduce you to today's session speaker and my colleague, Mr. Jeff. Jeff is VP of Technology Solutions at WinWire Technologies. And he brings close to 28 plus years of experience in the IT services industry with expertise in SharePoint, Office 365, and Azure. He's also a Microsoft Partner Technical Specialist, working very closely with Microsoft Technical Sales Team as a part of the Microsoft Managed Partner Program. So with that, let me hand it over to Jeff to take it from here. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Noor. As Noor said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody joining us in from all around the globe. I do appreciate you taking the time out and joining us today for this session on Microsoft 365. So the agenda that we're going to cover today is, first off, we're going to kind of introduce everybody into what Microsoft 365 Enterprise is. We'll talk about the various Microsoft 365 Enterprise plans. And then we're going to focus in a little bit into a deeper topic of Microsoft 365, and that's the security aspects of it. So from our perspective, we'll talk about the Microsoft security approach, Microsoft's overall security vision, the platform security in Microsoft 365 Enterprise, and the tools that Microsoft provides within Microsoft 365 Enterprise for security. So Microsoft 365 Enterprise. So what is it? It's a tool set that delivers on 4 key promises. Helping individuals to unlock the creativity by enabling people to kind of work naturally with ink, voice, and touch, all backed by the tools that utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning. It also provides the broadest and deepest set of applications and services with a universal toolkit for teamwork, giving people the flexibility and choice in how they connect, share, and communicate. From a simplification perspective, it simplifies IT by unifying management across users, devices, applications, and services. And the last one there, intelligent security, that's what we're going to focus in on today. It helps safeguard customer data, company data, and intellectual property with some built-in tools for intellectual security. So with each of these, let's take a bit of a deeper dive into what they've got. So unlocking creativity, as mentioned, it works naturally with ink, voice, and touch, and that goes back to all the modern Windows devices. And those devices, you're running Windows 10, which is, when we'll get to the different components of what make up Microsoft 365, the Windows devices, the modern devices such as Surface tablets, and anything that's running the latest version of Windows 10 is part of the Microsoft 365. Visualize information in new ways, being able to utilize some of the tools that are out there to get in the look and get a new feel for how visualizing, in particular visualizing data. Creating compelling content with intelligent apps, and this is where we can kind of utilize the tools that are out there to build these apps that would be served up on these devices that can get creative and build on the work and expertise of others, and that goes back into some of the robustness of what Microsoft 365 has to offer in utilizing additional tools and capabilities provided by third parties and so forth. The next one is built for teamwork. Certainly one of the big components of Microsoft 365 is Office 365, and that provides that enterprise class email, voice, and video, which allows everyone in your organization to stay connected. And that connection not just is only in email, voice, and video, but also utilizing communities through some of the tools provided in Office 365, such as groups and teams. To share and collaborate on documents in real time, again, utilizing the Office 365 pieces. And that also includes the Microsoft Teams, which is the latest collaboration tool, provides chat-based workspace for individuals. Integration for simplicity. One of the things that is a great benefit of Microsoft 365 is in being a cloud service that it's always up to date. Microsoft is making sure that updates are pushed on a regular basis into the products, and therefore all the latest and the greatest of technologies is available within the products itself, as well as self-service deployment for folks that are deploying on-prem versions of Office 365 to desktop versions of the Office tools, being able to self-serve deployment there. Cloud-based management is a big piece. Again, being able to manage, having administrators being able to manage various aspects of Microsoft 365 using cloud-based management tools. Being able to get some rich telemetry from the environment and being able to provide specific reports around that telemetry and the information that's gathered. And lastly, reduce the total cost of ownership with consolidated solutions. Again, you're not going out to various vendors and getting disparate products and trying to make them all work together. The total cost of ownership is reduced by getting all those products and all the pieces that fit together in one single package that Microsoft 365 has to offer. And the piece that we're going to focus a lot more in, and as we get further into this session, is the intelligent security. That's being able to protect your identity, apps, data, and services using the tools provided by Microsoft 365 to thwart advanced threats that come along in every day that we see these threats coming along, that we'll try and cover those a little bit as we get further along. Manage data archiving, governance, and discovery, showing how the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph is utilized in these products to provide you the richest security environment that's out there now, and accelerate GDPR. So those of you who are working either in the EU or support applications or sites in the EU, GDPR is something that's coming next May, and a lot of organizations are preparing for that in order to be compliant with the GDPR regulations. So moving on to Microsoft 365 and talking about what Microsoft 365 actually is. Well, Microsoft 365 comprises of three distinct products, all bundled into the suite that Microsoft is calling Microsoft 365. As Nor mentioned in the introduction, this used to be branded Secure Productive Enterprise. That's something that was released as kind of a bundle a little more than a year ago. And at the Microsoft Inspire conference this past July, the partner conference, it was rebranded, reintroduced as Microsoft 365 Enterprise. And what it comprises of is Office 365 Enterprise, the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and Windows 10 Enterprise. And what they each have to offer, Microsoft Office 365 Enterprise obviously provides a chat-centric workspace, email and calendar, voice, video, meetings, the Office applications, which provide the ability to do that co-authoring, sites and content management using SharePoint Online and some of the other collaboration tools, analytics, and advanced security and compliance. From an enterprise and mobility and security perspective, identity and access management using Azure Active Directory, managed mobility, productivity, information protection, and identity-driven security. And lastly, the Windows 10 Enterprise Advanced Endpoint Security, designed for the modern IT, allows individuals to be more productive and utilizes the powerful modern devices. Microsoft 365 Enterprise comes in two different flavors as far as the licensing model. We have the E3 license model and E5 license model, and they are analogous to kind of what you get in the Office 365 space, those of you who are enterprise customers and have purchased the enterprise license. Again, the E3 and the E5 should not be unfamiliar to you. But what that means in the Microsoft 365 space is with the E3, that includes Office 365 Enterprise E3, and you can see the various tools and capabilities that Office 365 Enterprise E3 provides. In the middle there, you have Enterprise Mobility and Security E3, which includes the Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 1, P1, Microsoft Intune, Azure Information Protection Plan P1, and Advanced Threat Analytics. And then from a Windows 10 Enterprise perspective, the Advanced Endpoint Security using Credential Guard and Device Guard, Azure AD Join, Dynamic Management, and Windows Inc., Cortana at work, and from a modern design perspective, the innovative designs and utilizing, again, what those new devices, those new modern devices provide. The difference stepping up to E5 adds in voice and analytics and compliance capabilities using those various tools. They are added into Office 365, including the PSTN conferencing, cloud PBX, etc. From a mobile enterprise mobility and security perspective, identity and access management is handled with Azure Active Directory Premium Plan P2. Same thing with Azure Information Protection Plan P2 and Cloud App Security. And from a Windows perspective is the Advanced Endpoint Security provided by Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection. So those are the differences between stepping up from the E3 SKU to the E5 SKU. And moving into the next piece of our agenda, which is the most important piece, is what we're focusing in on, and that is the security and what Microsoft 365 provides from a security perspective. So Microsoft, over the past year and a half, has made a tremendous investment into security, including over a $1 billion investment, and really stepping up from the standpoint of trying to be one of the biggest players in from a security perspective that are out there. And the 5 core principles and commitments to customers are around security, privacy and control, compliance, transparency, and reliability. And these are the commitments Microsoft is making across the broad spectrum of all their products that are out there in the marketplace. So why are they doing this? Well, certainly it's a rough time out there. If you've been paying attention to the news, and it seems every time I do one of these presentations, in particular around security, there's something in the news that kind of drills it all and brings it all home. And if you've been following, again, the news, you've heard about the big breach not too long ago with Equifax. So we continually hear these kinds of things in the news, and unfortunately it's something that we have to live with on a day-to-day basis. But in the past year, there's been upwards of 2 billion records compromised over the last year. And the scary thing is that it's usually about, it says 140 plus, it's around 146-day average that somebody can be in your system before that's even recognized and identified that somebody is in your system. And that's kind of the average that's out there between the time somebody gets in and the time it's detected. And from a cost perspective, needless to say, that $15 million of cost for business impact per breach is a significant number. And some other numbers that are out there as well is that the total cost of cybercrime to the whole global economy could be upwards of as much as $500 billion. And again, these are kind of estimates, and that number could be much higher. But that's kind of what people are looking at now, and certainly that's driven home by what we heard from that Equifax breach in particular, because that's dealing with a lot of sensitive information that's affecting a lot of customers that are out there. One of the other things is compromised credentials, and that makes up almost about 63 to 65% of all those network intrusions. So that's where somebody is easily able to hack in using either a stolen password or an easily guessed password, but most of the breaches at this point are being made up of that compromised credentials. And another scary statistic is 1 in 5 small to medium businesses are targeted in cybercrime attacks. So there's a chance that the companies that you guys work for, that all of them, depending upon the kind of company you are and your security profile, may have been a victim of cybercrime, and that's just again a scary statistic there, that 1 in 5 small to medium business targeted in cybercrime attacks. So Microsoft's security approach is a three-pronged approach, being able to provide tools to their customers that allow you to detect security breaches using targeted signals, behavioral monitoring, and machine learning. The next thing is to be able to respond to them, closing that gap between discovery and action and providing tools to do that. And lastly is protection across all the endpoints, from sensors that may be used in IoT devices to machines in the data center to your desktop. So providing tools across all those three components is what the Microsoft security approach is. And what's Microsoft's vision for security, and what's driving all of this? So, again, reinventing productivity for the digital transformation, and that's what their core message is right now, is supporting that digital transformation with the tools such as Microsoft 365 that provide collaboration, mobility, intelligence, and trust. And the vision for security is all these different tenets here. So their transparency vision is they want you as their customer to know where your data is stored, understand who has access to your data and under what circumstances they have access, monitor the state of your service to get a historic view of uptime, integrate security events, feeds into your company's security dashboard, and this is a security dashboard that's part of the Microsoft 365 interface, and be able to gain insights with access to these dashboards and operational reporting. So it's being able to show you as much information and being as transparent as possible with what's going on within your environment, within your data, knowing who's seeing your data, where your data is. The next tenet is their privacy vision. So Microsoft customers are the owner of their data. That is something that is very, very important, even though in the cloud that your data is residing on Microsoft's ecosystem up in the cloud and in their servers, that you own that data. That it is not something that Microsoft owns or has control over. Unlike some of Microsoft's competitors, Microsoft does not mine its customer data for advertising purposes, and that's a good thing there. And the privacy controls that you have available to you in Microsoft 365, including the modern devices running Windows 10, enable you to configure your company privacy policies. Microsoft are advocates for data privacy on behalf of its customers. That's one of the things they have stressed over the years as more and more government looking to gather information from cloud vendors in order to get customers' information. Microsoft has been known and has definitely gone to court to protect its customers' data. That is something that they will continue to do. It's not something that they turn over data at first request. They will always protect their customers when it comes to that. And that's handled in that last bullet point where Microsoft safeguards its customer data with strong contractual commitments, and that's contractual commitments to you as their customer. The security vision is providing the tools to provide built-in operational security, those safeguards to prevent unauthorized access and data loss, and to be able to detect and protect against external threats. And one of the more important ones is the operational security, and this has to do with their data center. So physical security that you have available within their data centers, they provide 24-hour monitoring and multi-factor authentication. All admins that work at Microsoft data centers go through rigorous background checks. There's a zero standing access to data, meaning anybody who's working in those data centers does not have any access whatsoever to your data. The encryption that's provided on those servers is data encryption at rest and in transit. From a Microsoft watching and monitoring their own data centers, they have two teams, the red team and the blue team, that's constantly doing penetration testing and incident response practice, and product development lifecycle using security development lifecycle and a bug bounty program that's out there to help identify vulnerabilities. Compliance is a big thing as well. So in order to meet compliance obligations for industries where compliance is a big factor, Microsoft meets all compliance obligations for data access using the customer lockbox. And that customer lockbox basically is that contract between you and Microsoft stating that no Microsoft employees have access to your data at any point in time. When you get into a situation where you do have to have support from Microsoft and there is the need for Microsoft to get into your system, that customer lockbox policy and process that's in place requires you to provide them the access and grant them the access. You know when they are in, what they are doing, and so forth. Monitor and investigate all events related to your data with full audit tracking, reducing the cost and risk with in-place intelligent advanced eDiscovery. Being able to efficiently perform risk assessment with service assurance, and we'll touch base on that, and manage data retention with advanced data governance, and we'll talk about advanced data governance as we move along. So what are the steps Microsoft takes to kind of safeguard your data? It allows you to identify, label, classify, and set policies to help protect your information. Being able to encrypt your data and restrict access to it using Azure Information Protection, which is a component of Microsoft 365, being able to safeguard your information with data loss prevention, being able to get visibility and to improve your security position with a tool called Microsoft Secure Score, which we'll talk about, which is a really, really valuable tool, and I will certainly recommend everybody go out and take a look at that. Restrict unauthorized data sharing across apps and prevent data leaks, and manage your data on devices with built-in mobile device management in Microsoft Intune. So being able to detect and protect against external threats, being able to block 100% known malware and 99% of spam with Exchange Online protection, providing zero-day protection against unknown malware and attachments and links with advanced threat protection. And if you've not had a chance to take a look at advanced threat protection, again, that's one of the tools I highly recommend you go take a look at. Providing actionable insights to global attack trends with threat intelligence, to be able to get alerts to suspicious behavior with advanced security management, and secure user accounts with conditional access and multi-factor authentication. So all these tools that are out there, all the things that I've mentioned about being able to detect and protect against external threats, these are all parts of what Microsoft 365 Enterprise has to offer. Some of them are only available in when you step up to E5, but some of the more basic components of being able to detect and protect against these threats are available as well in the E3 SKU of Microsoft 365. So let's move on and talk about the platform security in Microsoft 365 Enterprise. So there's three basic components of the platform security in Office 365 itself, which is probably one of the biggest pieces of the Microsoft 365 Enterprise Suite. And that's identity, devices, and app data and compliance. From an identity perspective, it's being able to detect and respond to identity-based threats. The tools that provide that are Microsoft Azure Active Directory and Advanced Security Management. Protect against password attacks, and that's utilizing multi-factor authentication for Office 365. And if that's not something that you are utilizing within your organization, it is recommended, and I can stress it that it's something I would definitely recommend taking a look at multi-factor authentication. I'm seeing more and more organizations moving towards that now as a way of kind of that first line defense against password stealing and password hacking. And then from a mobile devices perspective, mobile devices and applications using mobile device management for Office 365, as well as Microsoft Intune, which is part of the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite. Apps data and compliance, protecting against data leakage using Office 365 data loss prevention. Protect against malware and phishing attacks with advanced threat protection, being able to respond to security incidents and compliance with advanced compliance with customer lockbox. We talked about that, and eDiscovery and advanced data governance. And being able to leverage data to understand the threats and be able to respond to those threats with threat intelligence, where you're taking advantage of the information that Microsoft is continually gathering in the Microsoft Security Graph and being able to, they provide that information back to you as an end user, and you can see kind of what's going on in the marketplace from a threat perspective. So now what I want to do is take the last part of our time together to kind of focus in on the various tools. We've mentioned them as we've gone along in the agenda, but now I want to kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive into them. We're not going to go too deep into those specific tools, but definitely wanted to take some time to cover them at a high level. So the various tools that are available in Microsoft 365 Enterprise, and we talked about them earlier, but in Office 365, we have Advanced Threat Protection, Advanced Security Management, Advanced Data Governance, Customer Lockbox, Advanced eDiscovery, and Threat Intelligence. From an Enterprise Mobility and Security, we have Advanced Threat Analytics, Cloud App Security, Microsoft Intune, Azure Active Directory Premium, and Azure Information Protection. And lastly, in Windows 10, the Advanced Threat Protection, Information Protection, Credential Guard, and Device Guard. So from the perspective of what these tools are and what's available in E3 versus E5, when you get this slide deck, you'll be able to refer back to that one slide that highlighted the differences between the E3 of Microsoft 365 Enterprise and E5, and you'll be able to see what's available in each. So let's talk about Advanced Threat Protection. This is a tool that's available to basically allow you to protect yourself from email attacks, and that is one of the easiest ways for people who are looking to do bad things to get into your system is through phishing attacks, through various types of viruses that are sent as attachments, etc. So being able to have a tool out there such as Advanced Threat Protection, which provides that time-of-click protection against malicious URLs, zero-day protection against malicious attachments, critical insights into external threats, and integrated across all the various applications and services in the Microsoft 365 suite, and intelligence sharing with devices. So what you see there in the kind of little screen on the right-hand side is when you get an email that has a URL in it, embedded in it, Advanced Threat Protection will actually take that URL and kind of put it in a sandbox and actually will test that out outside of you receiving that email and test out that URL to make it sure that that URL is valid, that it's not going to a malicious website. If it does, you will see that message, this website has been classified as malicious, that you see there on the right-hand side of the screen, and so forth. So that is one of the things that it does. It will also, for attachments as well, use that sandbox to open up attachment to make sure that any of the, that there's no malicious payload in those attachments, no viruses, etc. So this is all happening in real time, and very little delay from the standpoint of when somebody sends that email to when you receive it. All this is happening on the back end, and again, Microsoft takes that information, kind of uses that to build up its security graph that is used and shared amongst all its customers to see the kind of attacks that are going on. So when there's an attack, whether it be like a ransomware attack that's going on, Microsoft will see that, as well as some of the other vendors as well, and that's where the intelligence comes from, that knowing that there is an attack underway. From an advanced security and management perspective, this is another tool. From a threat detection, this allows you to be able to identify high risk and abnormal use of security incidents and threats. Enhanced control basically allows you to shape your Office 365 environment with specific granular security controls and policies, as well as discovery and insights, which allows you to gain enhanced visibility and context into the Office 365 usage and shadow IT. And that shadow IT is basically another term for folks that are installing various applications on your desktop that are providing access. So people go out there and install a tool like Dropbox that's not an officially sanctioned IT tool. So these are tools that are easily downloadable, provide access to the cloud, and have the opportunity to put your organization at risk by exposing data that should not be exposed, or providing pathways for malicious attacks as well. Advanced data governance. This is a way to kind of provide that governance where you can leverage intelligence to automate the data retention, and that's being able to keep your information classified as based on the age of the data, the type of data that it is, who the user is that's created that, or the sensitivity of the data. To create policies and recommendations based on the machine learning as well. So that's again, building out these policies to handle your data in specific ways, to be able to apply actions that preserve high-value data. So if you're in an organization that has regulatory constraints to it, these are some of the things you can do and tools you can use in advanced data governance, and be able to purge redundant and obsolete and trivial data. So this data governance, again, has an opportunity, not as much around security, but being able to protect your data internally and be able to handle it from a governance perspective as you need to handle that data kind of going forward. The customer lockbox, we talked about. The lockbox helps customers meet compliance obligations, certainly by demonstrating that there's procedures in place for explicit data access authorization. Over the years, more and more organizations have been moving to the cloud, but there still are organizations and or industries that are out there that are reluctant to do so because of some of these compliance needs. With the customer lockbox, these are some things that could help possibly alleviate some of those compliance concerns. The extended access controls allows use the customer lockbox to control access to customer content for service operation. That goes back to that use case I kind of talked about earlier, where if you need to get support from Microsoft for any reason on your Office 365 tenant, the customer lockbox puts those controls in place that allows that very limited access to the folks who are going to be helping you on that support ticket. And visibility into actions, the actions taken by the Microsoft engineers in response to your request. They're logged, and those logs are accessible via the management activity APIs and the security and compliance center that are part of the Office 365 administrative interface. The next one is advanced eDiscovery. It helps you to identify relevant documents, and predictive coding enables you to kind of train the system to automatically distinguish between likely relevant and non-relevant documents from an eDiscovery perspective. The identified data relationships allows you to use clustering technology to kind of look at documents in context and identify relationships between them, and organize and reduce the data prior to review. It allows you to use near duplicate detection to organize the data and reconstruct email threads from unstructured data to reduce what's sent for review. So this is from an eDiscovery perspective. A big one here is threat intelligence. This provides broad visibility into attack trends. Again, utilizing what Microsoft's base allows them to do is collect information about security threats and build those into the Microsoft security graph, and being able to show these kind of trends that are out there to you as a customer. They're getting billions of these data points from all their installed base of Office users, Windows users, as well as Microsoft Azure users. And it's integrated data from external cyber threat hunters. So again, they're other folks that are out there that are looking at different threats. They're gathering data from those folks as well. to provide proactive security policy management and these intuitive dashboards with drill down capabilities. So you can kind of see a little bit of the screenshot there that's on the right-hand side of the screen, what the Security and Compliance Center looks like, and looking at the threat management dashboard. So you can kind of see where threats are kind of occurring throughout the globe, and being able to drill down on those and understand those. So again, where you were seeing an incident like the WannaCry ransomware attack that occurred a few months back, that's something that when that was occurring, if you went in and took a look at the threat management dashboard, you would see that happening across the globe. In particular, I think in Europe is where that one was most prevalent. Secure Score. I had mentioned this and mentioned the importance of this, and this is one that you can do, and I highly recommend you go out there and take a look at it. This is available to anybody who has Office 365 right now, Office 365 Enterprise E3 or E5, to be able to run a tool called Secure Score. And what Secure Score does, it provides insight into your security position of your Office 365 tenant and your cloud capabilities from a Microsoft perspective. And I like to consider this as kind of like a credit score for your Office 365 implementation. And when you go out there and look at your credit score, it gives you some things, key pointers on what you can do to help improve your credit score. The Microsoft Secure Score tool gives you guidance to increase your security level. So it will tell you various actions that you can take to improve your security position, from the standpoint of implementing multi-factor authentication or putting certain compliance policies in place. All these different things are called out, and each time you make a change based upon those recommendations, your secure score increases. So this is just a really great tool that you can go out and take a look at and use as a basis to kind of see where you stand today. And the secure score kind of touches all those different tools that I've previously mentioned, from the standpoint of being able to utilize those tools to help improve your score. Advanced Threat Analytics, and this is one that's really good. This is an on-premises install tool that's part of the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite that's part of the Microsoft 365 Enterprise Suite. It's an on-premise platform that helps you protect against your enterprise from advanced targeted attacks, to be able to detect suspicious activities and malicious attacks with behavioral analytics. So if you are logging into your Office 365 tenant from New York City, and then 2 minutes later it finds that your ID has logged into your Microsoft Office 365 tenant from someplace in Russia, for example, then that is something that would be called out. The Advanced Threat Analytics engine would understand that it's nearly physically impossible for you to be in those two places to be able to log in within that short period of time. So it will call that out on the Advanced Threat Analytics dashboard. This dashboard allows you to adapt to the changing nature of cybersecurity threats and focus what's important with the simple attack timeline, to be able to understand from the what's happening with various attacks if you happen to be attacked, to be able to get the analytics. If an email comes in and you see that it's being spread throughout the organization, to understand where it started, where it is, and use the analytics that ATA, Advanced Threat Analytics, provides to you, and allows you to kind of reduce that false positive fatigue. So understanding that for the most part, any message you get, that you may be under a true attack, as opposed to some of the tools that are out there that tend to lead to more false positives. And that's with that, that's the kind of various tools that are out there from a Microsoft 365 Enterprise perspective. So some things that have occurred, as Nora had mentioned, this week is a week that a lot's going on out there, in particular in Microsoft Ignite, which is a conference that's going on. I believe it's wrapping up tomorrow, but the Ignite conference, there's been a lot of announcements this past week, in particular around Microsoft 365. From a security perspective, there's been a good number of announcements that have been made out there, including some updates to advanced threat protection. Included in those are enhanced anti-phishing capabilities, expanding that to additional Office 365 workloads, including SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business and Microsoft Teams. The ability to have additional safe links and safe attachments. There's some new things in Office 365 threat intelligence that's coming, including to be able to have an attack simulator and a threat tracker, as well as a threat explorer, which allows new reports to document risky content and user activities of people within your system, as well as enhanced remediation capabilities. There's also some things around Compliance Manager, in particular as it relates to GDPR, if that's something that you need to be aware of for your organization, and some additional things such as event-based retention and disposition review in advanced data governance. So I highly suggest you go out and take a look at some of those announcements around Microsoft 365 that have come out this week, and I definitely recommend you look a little bit deeper into Microsoft 365 if you're only using Office 365 right now and you want to expand your capabilities moving into the realm in particular of moving up to the Microsoft 365 suite by bringing in the Enterprise Mobility and Security suite, as well as stepping up what you have moving to Windows 10 Enterprise as well. With that, Nora, I'll turn that back over to you to see if we have any questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the informative session, as well as giving that high-level insights from the Microsoft Ignite conference. I know there has been lots of announcement happening the last couple of days. That's great to hear. So yes, I do have a few questions. The first question comes from Tim. So this is again on the Secure Score. So what he asks is, like, if we make the changes recommended by Secure Score, how long does it take to reflect the new score?
Okay, that's a great question, Tim. Thank you. From the standpoint of Microsoft Secure Score, unfortunately, it's not like you won't see an immediate change to your score. When you make the changes based upon the recommendations, those changes typically take anywhere from 24 to 36 hours on average. Sometimes they say it may take up to 48 hours, but usually within a day, day and a half, that change will be reflected in your score.
Sure, thanks. And Kelvin, this question is from Kelvin, and he's referring back to the recent announcement at the Ignite. So his question is, what is the difference between Microsoft 365 Enterprise and Microsoft 365 Business?
That's a great, what was that, Kelvin? Thank you, Kelvin. Good question. We focused this particular webinar on Microsoft 365 Enterprise, but you heard, if you've been following along with Ignite, there were some announcements around Microsoft 365 Business. Microsoft 365 Business is more geared towards the smaller, mid-sized business market, more like the SMB type of market, not enterprise customers per se, but it is kind of a way for smaller businesses to take advantage of some of these things that Microsoft 365 has to offer. So that typically will involve Office 365 for small business, as well as some of the capabilities that Enterprise Mobility and Security provides. It would not be all of them. It's more of a scaled-down version, again, providing you with some of the more robust tools that 365 Enterprise has to offer, but really scaled down. And then from a Windows 10 perspective, it's more along the lines of just a Windows 10 Professional as opposed to Windows 10 Enterprise. They're still providing some of those tools that are available on the desktop to provide you the security that you need as an end user. So that's really the differences between 365 Enterprise and Microsoft 365 Business. And there were definitely, as you said, there were some announcements around that. There were a couple different SKUs. There's Microsoft 365 for education was announced this week at Ignite, as well as an F1 SKU, which is kind of analogous to the kiosk, the K1 license that they used to have for folks in Office 365. So again, I recommend you take a look at some of those announcements from earlier this week.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. I know we are almost there, but let me take this one last question. So can we use Intune to manage non-Windows devices such as iPhones and iPads?
Oh, absolutely. Microsoft Intune is a very broad and rich mobile device management tool, as well as some other capabilities that it has. But yeah, there is no restriction as far as the type of device, whether it be a Windows device, a Mac, an Android device, an iOS device from a phone perspective. Same thing with the Android phones. They can all be managed using the Intune tool set. So I definitely think that if you don't have a mobile device management tool in place, or you're looking to change it, that if you move up to Microsoft 365, that Microsoft Intune, that's part of the enterprise mobility and security component of Microsoft 365 Enterprise, that will provide you those capabilities to manage all of your devices, regardless of the type of device that it is.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Before we wrap up, one quick announcement in terms of our next webinar will be on the Azure search powered with artificial intelligence. In fact, this session is being delivered by our CTO Vineet Arora at the Dev Intersection Conference 2017 in the Las Vegas, end of October. And we will also be delivering a webinar on the same topic post the Dev Intersection for the people who miss out the session. So keep an eye. We will send you the details for the registration as soon as we have logged the dates. Again, thanks for taking time to join this webinar. I hope you found it informative and useful. Jeff, thank you so much for taking time to deliver this session. Have a good day.
My pleasure, Noah. Thank you everybody for joining in.
Thank you.